My next guest on Calyx Cafe is Brad Hightower. He is the founder of Hightower Clinical Services, and he also has his own podcast called Note to File. So you may know of Brad if you follow him on his podcast or on LinkedIn. Today, we want to talk about patient recruitment. There is a lot of innovation around patient recruitment, aiming to accelerate it. Innovation in this space is not just about technology, though. It's also about what initiatives people like Brad take. And Brad's initiative is specifically about community partnerships. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Calyx Cafe. Today I'm with Brad Hightower. Hi Brad, welcome to Calyx Cafe. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, thanks for joining us. Oh, I see you have your Calyx mug. What's your drink of choice?
I do just a caramel macchiato this morning. Just some caffeine and sugar to get me going.
Oh, nice. A good start of the day. I'd like to start with Note to File. So you have your own podcast. How did you come with the idea of Note to File?
Yeah, I think like so many people in the industry, especially at the site level, I felt like there was just sort of a real lack of resources and content out there for people to just learn from and to hear stories from other people within the industry. So yeah, I really just set out to kind of be a sort of a soft interview show and be able to share some best practices. And look, I mean, I love what I do. So if, any way I can contribute and help sort of open up the conversation a little bit more was really my intent. So yeah, we're almost at 50 episodes now. So it's a lot of work, but it's also a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think about Calyx Cafe as well. And I like the fact that you have a diversity of people joining your podcast. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me still how sort of big the industry is with, unless you were in it, you almost wouldn't know just how sort of broad and deep the clinical research industry goes. So again, just providing an opportunity for people to, kind of get out there and get to know each other and learn different sides of the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And how people don't know what even people in their own organization do. So yeah, podcasts are a very good way of learning from each other. So how did you get where you are today? What's your background?
Yeah, I mean, like very many people, I sort of fell into clinical trials accidentally. I actually, maybe even have a little more of a bizarre story than most, but I actually dropped out of college back when I, first went and joined a band, traveled the country and, playing in a punk rock band. I eventually decided, I had to grow up. So I was actually working in a plasma center, which interestingly shared a lot of the same sort of qualities of a good clinical research coordinator, consenting patients and drawing blood. And I had a friend who was leaving a local academic institution as a research coordinator, and they recommended I give it a shot. So decided to go for it. And it's a long couple of years of really learning how things work at the site level. It's very confusing and oftentimes inefficient in a big academic institution, but after a couple of years was able to sort of get my feet under me. Eventually moved on to become the executive director at a large cardiology hospital for their research department. Worked there for a while. Again, still noticed quite a few inefficiencies and sort of misaligned incentives across, again, another big institution, which kind of leads me to where I am today, which is founding Hightower Clinical and starting my own little research operation where We essentially provide research infrastructure to physicians who otherwise don't have it. The whole idea is to sort of lower the barrier of entry for physicians to participate in trials, especially those who are not part of a large academic institution or a large hospital. Also enables us to get out into underserved communities. It's been a really exciting and tiring 4 years since we started this venture, and that's kind of where I'm at today.
Amazing. And yeah, definitely the first time I hear someone joining the industry after playing in a punk rock band.
I'm sure there are others, but yeah, it was certainly a long and winding road.
Yeah, I bet. So you mentioned like serving the community, and that's a topic that we wanted to discuss today. Community partnership. What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, it may depend in some part on where you live in the country, but I think it's probably pretty generalizable, especially here in the middle of the US. Most clinical research takes place within large academic institutions, and that's sort of it. Occasionally, you may have a hospital who has their own research department. So, there's a few problems with this. One is that obviously patients have to go to one of these large institutions. So, in some ways, you're sort of immediately cutting down your potential reach and potential patient populations. In addition to that, these tend to be, again, very large, bureaucratic, and often inefficient institutions. Working with local IRBs can take months and months, and dealing with budgets and legal within these institutions can also add quite a bit to the time frames. So again, for me, it was being able to reach out and notice in the community there were a lot of private practice physicians or maybe small groups who were interested in participating in trials. And I mean, frankly, the barrier to participate in trials is fairly high if you're a private practice physician. It's sort of a very niche field that not a lot of people are very knowledgeable about. Even, again, people within the industry, maybe who've even worked at a site, maybe don't fully appreciate the bigger perspective from beginning to end that it takes to manage trials at a site. So again, I felt like a need was there, and we were able to start to partner with some of these private practice groups and basically provide the infrastructure from beginning to end. And I think that's really, for better or worse, what it may take to start to diversify what the trial landscape looks like, is get out there and providing this resource to physicians who maybe have great patient populations, but otherwise wouldn't have the ability to participate.
That's a very novel idea, actually, because we hear a lot, obviously, about patient centricity, trying to reach patients directly through social media, but we don't. Well, that's the first time I hear about trying to work with smaller sites or even like private practices to actually reach their patients, because obviously they will also have patients that they see regularly. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think, to speak to your point, I mean, I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's the next step towards patient centricity. I know, right now, DCT, decentralized trials, are sort of, all the rage. We're talking about really layering a lot of technology, maybe onto what we do currently. But again, I feel like this is sort of the step instead of the leap, is to, go to where these patients are seeing their doctors. They have a relationship. They trust their doctors and, clinics. So again, to me, it makes a lot of sense to really, again, invest some time and resources into supporting these clinics, because again, I think it's just a win-win situation.
Yeah, completely. And so, how do you think that could impact patient recruitment?
Well, again, I think you could certainly diversify patient recruitment, especially if you're able to go into more diverse neighborhoods and diverse communities and set up research sites. Because again, I think oftentimes, you know, issues beyond logistical issues of someone getting to a large academic center, you've got just trust issues in some communities. If instead you're able to, you know, work with a community physician, I think it's again sort of a slam dunk when it comes to potentially increasing diversity. And then obviously you're able to also potentially go to places where there's completely just untapped patient populations. Eventually, you know, a department within a large academic institution or hospital, or even a standalone research site, is going to sort of exhaust, you know, their potential patient database. This allows you to really almost be mobile, go to where the patients are. And again, I think that's sort of the holy grail, right, in terms of patient optionality and increasing recruitment availability as well.
Yeah, and I guess those big institutions will also have so many clinical trials running at the same time. Whereas if you go to smaller sites, they may not have any running. So like their whole potential patient population could take part.
Yeah, it's true. Again, I think there's a certain level of also sort of ownership and accountability a physician takes if they're, you know, performing trials within their own private practice. So yeah, I think it encourages a little better level of care, as well as, you know, not overburdening in terms, like you said, you go to some of these places and they're, you know, you've got coordinators who are running 12 to 15 trials. I've seen it time and time again. So again, you can sort of avoid that by, you know, sticking with maybe smaller and oftentimes more specialized patient populations.
Yeah. And is it something that sponsors are receptive to?
I think they have been. Again, I've found, you know, found quite a bit of success in the model because again, it has a lot of upside for the sponsors. We can move much more quickly than a large institution can. Access to the physicians is oftentimes less of a problem because, again, you're right there within their clinic. So, you know, again, you're going to get better PI oversight. You're going to get better sponsor or PI interaction. And again, you're talking about, you know, untapped patient population. So oftentimes your enrollment can exceed even what some of these large institutions can. Not just because of the patient population, but also just because of the ability to be much more agile. I mean, the guy who calls the shots is the, you know, doctor in the office next door. It's not 6 layers of legal review and 6 months back and forth with the local IRB. So again, I think there's a lot of advantage and even excitement from the sponsor side for a model like this.
Well, in just over 10 minutes, I think you've convinced me. So I'm sure you don't have any issues convincing sponsors. Well, that's reaching the end of our time for today. But I'd like to ask you one last question. So, where would you like to see the clinical trials industry if you look forward 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think if we can start to see a merge of these, you know, this DCT technology that's starting to come to market, that's very well funded right now, sort of a merging of this with the continued advancement of community partnerships. So I think if you can find a good blend of these two things, then you could solve a lot of issues that exist in the clinical trial landscape today from the site side. So that's my hope for the future, as we start to see less siloing and more collaboration between, you know, essentially sites and site networks and sponsors and even vendors to that degree. So, you know, maybe not a not a moonshot by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, that's what I hope to see over the next 10 years for sure.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense because we have so much new going on at the moment, so much innovation, not only in technology but also processes, initiatives like you do, that it will be really interesting to see what it allows us to do in 10 years' time. So I think that's a nice, realistic way of looking into the future. Well, it's been a pleasure having you, Brad. Thanks so much for joining us. And to everyone, thank you for joining us as well. And we have plenty more videos from Calyx Cafe that you can watch as a replay. So feel free to jump in on our website. Thanks, Brad, and talk to you soon.